I can appreciate where you're coming from, Big Irish. I can, and I do. But I got a few questions for you. You said the Juggalos and make other Juggalos look bad are the ones that we need to speak against. But in someone's opinion, it could be a family kid that's doing something like that that makes you feel like, oh my god, this is really awkward. People go to shows and they feel uncomfortable with people chanting family ridiculously, and it's one person who chants and then everyone else kind of follows through in almost a sheepish act. There's a lot of people who stand around me and be uncomfortable. Like, what the fuck? It happened at the Twisted show. It happened at the Mighty Death Pop tour. It did not happen at the 2008 Hall of Wicked show in Detroit, Michigan, that I was proud to attend. ICP back in the day, I didn't know what Whoop Whoop was until I went to that show, and I didn't understand the family concept until I went to that show. Because growing up, to me, it was just music. And I'd see someone rock ICP shit, I'd be like, dude, what's up? And then I'd show him my Hatchet Man. He'd show me his Hatchet Man, or he'd show me his ICP shit, or whatever, and we'd sit there and talk about albums. Because the Whoop Whoop thing, when I got into it, wasn't around. At least not in this area, in this small town in New Hampshire. However, I've got nothing against family kids or whatever. I got something against people who have stupid shit like, am I still a juggalo if I mix a drink with Fago? What kind of stupid shit is that? And you've got people who respond to that shit. Like, nah, dude, you're good, fam. No, you're good. Like, now there's fucking regulations. What the fuck? I thank ICP for the shit that they've done for me. I thank ICP for all their creative ideas. I thank them for the 6 Joker cards. I sort of thank them for Bang Pow Boom. Because Kelly Green said, Bang Pow Boom was a shit. And it was alright. I liked it much better than I liked Mighty Death Pop. There was more tracks on it that I liked than I did on the Mighty Death Pop track. But regardless, let's go into Hell's Pit, the Wraith Shangri-La, where I got into the music was the Wraith Shangri-La. I actually got to feel the anticipation for Hell's Pit when they announced it on Shangri-La. And I knew it was coming out when he was like, that shit's called Hell's Pit, run out and get it. And I was like, oh my god, there's going to be an album called Hell's Pit. I'm stoked. Yeah, when I listened to Juggalo Family, I listened to it and I was like, I didn't see it as like a knit tight group though when I first listened to it. What I got out of Juggalo Family and that song was, if you ever down, call one of your homies. If you're ever down, talk to one of these people. If you're ever down, bump our shit. But I didn't start calling the kids I was hanging out with in high school family kids. Or I didn't start calling them family. I apologize. So where do I get to stand on this whole thing? On what makes me comfortable? On what's given me a bad name? Psycho Sam? The people who raped the baby? The people who rocked a Hatchet Man when they did some of these horrible things? Some of these murders you hear about? Some of the crazy shit that goes on in people's heads? Or can I get discouraged when someone's asking me if they mix something with Fago, does that make them true fam? Is there an age limit to get involved in the family? Because now there's standards. Now there's rules. Now there's all these different things that, like CPN said, you don't want to be a juggaho, do you? And now people are scared shitless of being called that. I'm called it at least 100 plus times on YouTube on just one video. But the way I see it, I put in as much time, as much money, as much effort into the label that I supported, into the label of people who I liked, who I admired. And I read Violent J's book. And like I said to you in the Hangout, Twisted, when they left, all this shit went to hell. When Twisted left, that's when people were paying close attention and giving a negative spark to Psychopathic. Because it's ABK and Twisted's beef that started that. Because when you look back, when ABK left, Twisted had nothing to do with ABK. The last album they ever did together was Dirty History. On ABK's album Dirty History was the last time Twisted and ABK ever did anything together. But now ABK is on the new mixtape for Twisted, A New Nightmare. So, with us having as much love and as much gratitude, could we have as much hatred? Could we have as much feeling of betrayal with Violent J, with the shit that's been going on at that label? Could we have that towards Twisted? Could we have that towards ABK for leaving the label? Like, where does everybody stand? If you're an ABK fan, when I liked ABK more than I liked Twisted, then he came out with Medicine Bag, and I was pretty much done with that. But ABK was my all-time favorite for the longest time. I was bumping his music. He was my favorite performance at the time in 2008, next to Mars. I liked ICP's set, but when Blaze came out and pointed me out when I was wearing my custom-made Anybody Killer hat, and I'm sure you can find this if you look up videos at the 2008 Hollow Wicked. You find Blaze and ABK, you'll see them. You'll see Blaze fucking point me out, and ABK's coming over and fucking giving me daps and shit. That meant the world to me. You're not gonna get that shit from ICP. You already heard Justin Eldridge if you watch Hatchet's Wicked Show episode 5, which I recommend whoever's watching this does. Big Irish, I recommend you check it out. When he said that Violent J, the guy was crowd surfing his buddy there, and he went to go give him daps, and Violent J went, like, that's kind of fucked up. The guy who started this all, the guy who built an empire, couldn't afford to give my boy's boy daps. That's kind of fucked up. But then I listened to some more music. Then I started noticing things. I started noticing things, picking bits and pieces apart from ICP's book, Violent J's book. I started noticing some things. And I read this after Twisted left. And I was grateful to see it. I really was, because I was actually kind of hoping that through Violent J's book, things would be a little different. And they weren't. Not for me anyways, on a personal level, or business-wise, or whatever. So, I found a label. I do give thanks to ICP for finding this label for me. Mad Insanity. And if it wouldn't have been for Boondocks being sick for the 2008 Hollow Wicked tour, I'd never have met Mars. I never would have seen the dude live. I'd have never been introduced to his music. And it was his music that helped me and my buddy Steve get through college and through all the hard times that we had to go through. Because college was no peach. College was no walk in the park. But ICP's music ultimately led to my friendship with Steve. And Steve is like a brother to me. So I'm confused. Because there seems to be a lot of regulation. There seems to be a lot of do's and don'ts for just being a fan of music. You don't see that in Marilyn Manson. They're not called Manson hoes. They're not called fakes. They're not called posers. That's a term I haven't heard in a long time, poser. Haven't heard that in the longest time. Why? Because now everyone's doing it. It's hard to tell who the poser is. Maybe ICP's fan base will get to be that way. Maybe the Juggalo family thing will kind of get recognized for something like that, and we're just going to be Juggalos again. But unfortunately, some people already fucked that up for us. Some people fucked it up to where it's got more meaning than just music now. To where you got people calling people Juffalos, Juggahos, Juffahos, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So where exactly is the ground zero for everything that's happened that led to this? Where's the ground zero that started it? Because like I said, it was not Lotus for me. It was not ICP for me. It was the fans who were chanting family. It was the ones who were chanting whoop whoop. It was the ones who were doing this and that. I never heard ICP or anything like that say that except in a few of their songs, but it didn't even dawn on me until I heard the fans say it. I'm like, oh yeah, they do say it in these songs. Interesting. But in order to identify where the issue started, and it's people who took the music the wrong way. Well, how can that possibly happen? To misinterpret lyrics like that? Because music touches people in different ways. They gather different things from it. But the problem is that people, similar to the ones who go and grab a hatchet and beat somebody in the head with it, similar to the person who got AIDS from his girlfriend because she slept around with this dude's friend and he killed him with an axe that had a mace ball attached to it with spikes, accidentally killing him with it, which I read on Juggalo News, by the way. Well, what the fuck? I love the music, but I'm starting to see things that, like you said, you don't want to see. But I admit that I've seen it. I admit that I've noticed it, acknowledged it, and now I'm willing to do something about it. Whether it's calling them and bitching and complaining and telling them this isn't right, which I've left messages for them with the secretary tons of times. And it had nothing to do with Mighty Death Pop or shit like that. It was, what the hell is going on with Violent J? And now I'm hearing things from Sasha Doll, which I find to be a little interesting, the things that I've heard come out of her mouth. And as far as I'm concerned, she's got no reason to lie. But I'm trying to figure something out. You claim rape, and then there's 5 more people who claim rape. But this could mean one of two things. Is the person telling the truth, or is the person telling a lie of what happened? And that's left to interpretation as well. But the fact of the matter is, someone stands their ground, sees it, and stands up for it. Are they still in the wrong? It's similar to religions who take a certain stance and they stand on it, and in the eyes of the rest of the world is wrong, but they're right, and in the rest of the world, they're wrong and the rest of the world is right, and vice versa, and yada yada yada. So, is there anything we can actually do about this? Is there anything that we could possibly change about this? Is it worth putting up the fight and the hassle? Or do you leave the group who's causing all these problems? Because for me, it was Juggalo Family group. Juggalo Families online. It wasn't Juggalos online. It was like Juggalo Family Chat. That's what it was. Juggalo Family Chat. And some of the statuses, dude, I'm like, who the fuck invited me to this group? Because I know I wasn't in it. But I'm reading some of these posts. I talked about some of these posts. And it was the dumbest questions that didn't pertain to anything whatsoever. With that in mind, look back into when you got into music. Look back to, and I guess I'm not talking just Big Irish. I'm talking to people who are going to be watching this video. This is made to be a video response. But there's going to be other people that watch this. So I want you to think real hard. I want you to think what was going on in your mind when you first picked up an ICP album, when you picked up your first piece of merch, when you listened to your first track, when you went over to your buddy's place and he played it on the stereo. What was going on in your mind? Did family have anything to do with it? Did this Juggalo, Juffaho, Juggalo thing come into play? Or was it just music to you? Was it the fans that came up with these terms, that called you a fake, that called you a this, that called you a poser? Oh, you really don't like ICP. You're really not down with the clown. Because you're not willing to conform? Because you're not willing to sit there and go, well, that's wrong, and not take acknowledgement of it? Or to feel like you've been played? Or to feel like that your music artists who were on that label that you have so much passion for got scrapped and tossed away because ICP is meant to be up here? ICP deserves to be up here, but why the little stage plot for Twisted when they were on the label? Why that little bit for Blaze and ABK? How come they're not treated as equals? How come that's an issue? You see, ask questions. You will find answers. But you're going to find hundreds of answers. You're not going to find what you want to find in everything that somebody says. Why? Because ICP doesn't come out and give us a list of 10 commandments, doesn't come out and give us a list of things we should and should not do. Violent J has touched base on it a little bit, and he's even said it's all about the music. But they even pandered into the whole family thing, because they didn't do the whole family get together thing, whatever, until the fans started picking up on it, and they pandered to that. Which makes you wonder, do they lack their own opinion, or do they go where the majority goes, and that's why the music's changed? And that's why they've got a different target market now. Why they are kind of playing to kids a little bit. Why they're doing all ages shows. Why they're so concerned about this and that. Makes you wonder. Makes you think. And what makes me think is, who else is out there that's going to be put on this label, it's going to be dropped? Or who's going to want to leave because they're trying to grow and they can't? If you look at Big Hoodoo's track list on his album, Violent J, his name's all over it. Whatever happened to somebody's own creativity? Because on psychopathic, it does not exist. Like we thought it did. We just found out during the Abomination's second leg that Twisted just started writing their own lyrics. So my question's this: where do you stand? Why do you stand there? And would you budge if you knew the truth? Would you budge? Would you change your mind just a little bit? Would you look at a different light because somebody else said so? Or would you do it because you're noticing that something's not right? If you look at Joker and why he was complaining about all these different labels and things like that, why do your rappers all start out dope and they start to suck when they step into corporate land? Why is that? Why is it that when money touches somebody's hands, the music all of a sudden changes a little bit? Would it be because it's the money? Or would it be because they blew up so much that now there's a pack of kids, there's a pack of wolves, there's a pack of sheep? It kind of changed that to make it so that way they're taking up more of the fan base and there's more people getting into it for that reason. Because it's all about family. Because it's all about this. Not about the music. So how do you pick out the enemy? How do you pick out who's doing something wrong when possibly they could be the religion standing their ground thinking that they're right? You do one of two things. You beat them or you join them.